Hi guys, this is Horror Studio 1 coming to you again with what I admit today to be a very particular video about the Ratman. Now, I don't know what your interpretations of the Ratman are, but mine stems back from childhood. I had never seen a Ratman before, but I remember there was a kid's show called Hey Arnold. The kid with the football head, he had a group of friends around like a neighborhood or whatnot. And there was this one episode in this cartoon, I think I was 9 or 10 years old at the time, where he drops his grandpa's watch into the sink of inside the kitchen. And it drops into the sewers, and he goes down into the sewers to retrieve this watch. And he's met by what is deemed as the Sewer King, or so-called Ratman. This man who, he looks really unhealthy and who lives inside the sewers and has a narcissistic personality, saying he's the best and, oh, rats, above human beings, obviously. But of course, he's probably just some crazy lunatic who just ended up in the sewers. And I don't know, that's always kind of stuck in my mind as what the Ratman is supposed to look like. I have read 3 stories here. It kind of sounds a bit like an urban legend, 1 or 2 of them, but I think it gives a pretty close interpretation to my personal opinions about the Ratman. So I guess that's just the intro I wanted to give to explain this really specific topic, Next video is going to be like the Monkey Man or Alligator Man or something like that. So if you guys have watched that cartoon or that episode of Hey Arnold, put it in the comments below, that's always good. I'm not sure if it's a Canadian thing or if you guys have it in the States, but anyways, grab a blanket, turn off your lights for 3 true scary horror stories about the encounters with the Ratman, and I'm not sure if it's paranormal or let's not meet.
Ratman. This one night when I was home alone, I started playing Mortal Kombat downstairs in the living room. I heard a loud thump from upstairs. I go to investigate, thinking it was my dog. I see a man crouched over, half naked, punching my closed bedroom door. He was holding something, a large kitchen knife. I walk quietly down the stairs to grab my handgun. I'm 17 at the time. I got it as a gift from my uncle before he passed away. I grabbed it, head upstairs to see him standing up facing me. He laughs and then creepily says, "Peekaboo, I see you." I point my gun at him and yell, "Get the fuck out of my house or I'll shoot your fucking ass." He lunges at me, but not before I shoot him in the gut, making him fall over in pain. But despite the obvious pain, he gets up and starts chasing me all the way to my neighbor's house. My neighbor, seeing what happened, lets me in the moment I get to his doorstep and gets his shotgun out. The guy starts banging at my neighbor's door, yelling, let me in, I want to play." As I call the cops, my neighbor threatens to shoot the other man if he dares to get any closer. 50 minutes later, the cops show up and arrest the man after tending to the gunshot wound in his abdomen. It turns out that the man was homeless and high on drugs. If it wasn't for my neighbor, I don't know what would have happened. I would have been dead or something like that. I hope I never find out what would have happened. So Ratman, let's not meet again. P.S. Enjoy that bullet fragment in jail. The Ratman. This is not my tale, but a friend's. However, I felt like it needed to be told, as it is truly horrifying, so much so that my friend has told it to several people, and every time has been reduced to tears purely through recounting what he saw. It is a short story, and to him, I expect the whole encounter lasted at full length about 3 minutes or so. We live in London, and my friend was walking back from his local bus stop home at about 3 or 4 in the morning. He lives in the rural end of London, so the streets there are always empty at that time of the night, which is why my friend was walking down his long road, and he noticed movement about 100 yards ahead. As he got closer, he noticed that there was what seemed to be a man rustling in a bin, lit quite brightly by the orange light of a lamppost. However, as my friend was still quite far away from him, he couldn't make out the man's clothing or his face. What he did notice from afar was that the man was severely hunched over and had twitchy and erratic mannerisms. Slightly creeped out, but not too worried, he carried on walking, preparing to pass the man nonchalantly. However, he did decide to cross, so he was on the opposite side of the road as he passed him. As he came within 20 yards of this man, this is when one of the most terrifying moments of my friend's life occurred. My friend was making no effort to be quiet as he came close to passing the mysterious twitchy figure that lurked across the street. As he came close enough to be audible, his footsteps startled what my friend now calls the Ratman. Upon hearing his footsteps, the Ratman, in a single twitch of the neck, turned to face him, at which point a severely deformed face was illuminated by the orange light from above him. My friend described it as a rat-like pointed jawline that protruded out of his head, with a nose that followed suit. His mouth was small and wildly out of proportion to the rest of his face, while his eyes barely showed any glint in the light of the lamp. At this point, my friend froze in bewilderment and heart-stopping fear. They shared a moment of what seemed like sheer eye contact as my friend stood like a statue and the Ratman stared and twitched directly in his direction. After this short, terrifying moment, the man suddenly dashed after making a noise that my friend finds hard to describe, somewhere in between a yelp and a cry. Leaping what seemed to be the dexterity of a parkour expert onto a garden fence while proceeding to leap from that to a taller fence that ran perpendicular to it. He then disappeared behind the large fence into a house's garden, all the while barely making a sound. My friend recounts laying awake in his bed until dawn, listening, silent, listening for any noise outside that could be the Ratman. After all, he might as well have been lurking around his row of gardens and might even show up. My friend to this day finds it hard to tell the story, which is why I fully believe the encounter. As I said, he cries every time he tells it, most of the time as he attempts to describe the man's horrifying features. Remember, neither my friend nor I believe that this was some sort of freak of nature where a man was actually part rat. What terrifies me the most was that this man was both deformed in a terrifying manner and surprisingly dexterous, while still plainly living on the streets like nothing happened. It could have been mental illness involved as well. The sound he made before he bolted seemed to suggest that. The point is, we don't know, and what is so terrifying about the Ratman is because we don't know. So, I don't know what the hell you are, even though you are definitely 100% human being. Ratman, let's not meet. Stalked by a Ratman. When I was in my early 20s, I worked a graveyard shift at a 24-hour Walmart. I worked in the toy department in the back of the store. I mainly worked alone, and once in a while, a friend would help me stock. But unless we were heavy on fright, you basically did your own thing and went home at 7 a.m. in the morning. The first time I encountered the man we finally ended up calling Ratman was around midsummer 2 years into my job at the store. He would come in at around 5 a.m. in the morning and look at all the Hot Wheels cars. He was a collector. There seemed to be this group of men in their 50s to 60s who enjoy grabbing up these cars. I normally was in the back, tossing my trash in boxes when he would venture in. Never really speaking or seeing me, but I would see him come and go, come and go. One morning, however, I happened to be down that aisle when he came for his little 97-cent treasures. He got about 2 inches from my face and introduced himself. I seriously could not tell you what his name was. He was about 5 foot tall, overweight, and in his, I guess, would be like late 50s. As later conversations confirmed, he had a daughter in her 20s. His breath was something that can only be described as rancid, rotting garbage mixed with onions. He literally had the worst breath, and he would get really close to your face while talking. Our first encounter was just your average creeper feeling that you get from someone sometimes. Maybe that dude at the bar you don't want hitting on you kind of feeling, right? I honestly thought nothing of it until he started showing up earlier to try and catch me on the sales floor. He would come up behind me and startle me, try to put his hand on my shoulder, or grab a box I was stocking and offer to just hold it. In front of his crotch, really, while I got the items out. At this time, I was very young and stupid. I didn't know how to handle a creeper man, and honestly, had only been hit on by a few guys before this that were actually considered creepy, to which I would never see them again, usually at concert meetings or somewhere public in passing, but never at work. I just figured he was a creeper until one morning he came up to me and asked me out. Oh boy, here it goes. I have to try and blow this guy off and hope he just goes away. He came up to me and said, "I noticed you like to eat at Chinese buffets. As you were there yesterday with your friend, I want to take you there. You seem to like the fresh fruit and stir-fry noodles, right?" What the fuck? I've never seen this guy at the place. However, my friend and I were there for lunch that day before he came in. Was he watching and I didn't see him? He must have been and watched what I ate. Why? The place was pretty friggin' empty that day as well. My friend and I always went after lunch groups, as she had anxiety and didn't like to eat in really busy places. At that moment, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to think. I just froze there and told him, "No thanks, I'm very busy." I was worried for a bit, but he ended up just leaving me alone that morning. The next day, I did not see him in the store, and then I was off for another 2 more days. That Friday, when I returned to work, sure enough, he was there at 5 a.m., looking through the Hot Wheels. I was running behind and still had boxes to stock. He kept staring over at me, so I ended up calling my friend on the intercom phone to her department and asked for help. She knew what was going on with this guy, so she came over and stalked down the aisle he was in. My friend, this particular friend, usually gives off this "I'm nuts, don't fuck with me" vibe, and looking back, she was a little off her nut. She would have probably sliced his guts open with a piece of cardboard. Anyways, I continued working and thought he had left, so I pushed my cart back to the stockroom, and just as I was about to turn the corner, he came from around the door and grabbed my arm. I twisted back and told him not to touch me. He scared the shit out of me. He said he was sorry and was looking for me. He wanted to know if I was always off on Wednesdays and Thursdays, as he came in and I wasn't here. I lied and told him my days off change often. He then says to me that he didn't think that was right because every Thursday afternoon I go to HEB, which was a grocery store, with an older woman in a green car. Fuck. This guy was stalking me. I did go to the store with my mom on Thursdays afternoons. I broke away from this guy and the whole goddamn conversation. The very next day, again, he came in again. He walked right up to me and asked me out to lunch. I told him no, I was too busy, not wanting to date, and walked off. There had been several small conversations early on with this guy and my friend about how he liked young girls to dance close to him and etc. In general, he was creepy, and we thought perverted. My friend had gave him the nickname Ratman. One morning after work, around 10 p.m. at night, I was getting ready for bed when suddenly my phone rang. This was way long before everyone even had a cell phone. I was about to cover up and drift off to sleep, but I ended up getting out of bed and answering the phone. The voice on the other end of the line shook me to my core. It was Ratman. "Hello, Sally. I hope I didn't wake you up. I want to know if you'll go to the movies with me tonight." I yelled at him, "How the hell did you get my number?" He ends up telling me that my friend gave it to him, and she said I secretly was interested in him and too shy to tell him about it. I know my friend would not do this. I hung up on him, and the next night asked my friend. She was upset and said no, she would never do that. At the time, my boss was sitting with us at the lunch table. He overheard our conversation and asked what the hell was going on. Come to find out, my boss got a phone call in the store at 9 a.m. yesterday, asking for verification for employment and asked if they had my current number on file. This was long before any security measures were put in place to where you can't just call and ask if so-and-so works there and stuff. So my boss, nonchalantly, thought I had applied for a new job and gave this idiot my goddamn phone number. This Ratman continued to call and harass me. The next week on my 2 days off, he called at least 30 times and left messages for me on my answering machine, even crying and even screaming, asking why I didn't love him, and then calling back and leaving a message about our trip we were gonna take together to Mexico, and how he couldn't wait to see me in the new swimsuit that he bought me. The guy was freaking mental. There were a few times after that where I would be out at the store and once in the mall and would look over and see the Ratman. See him across the food court or in some random ass store I was shopping in or something, just watching, staring. The situation got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore and I realized I had to do something. I even talked to my mom, and she suggested for me to do what was right. So I ended up calling the police, which in turn really did no good. And I even changed my phone number at the time. In those days, that was a very hard thing to do. There was no Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. It was hard to tell people that you changed your friggin' number. After I changed my number, he finally stopped coming into the store. My boss said he would escort him out if he did come in, but my boss got a transfer out of state, so eventually this guy would pop in every once in a while, looking for me, I guess. I changed apartments and stopped stocking toys. I have long moved away and still keep in touch with the one friend I met at Walmart. Up until 5 years ago, the Ratman was still coming into the store, she says. Just older, but still creepy, and had started harassing another young girl who worked there. So, looking back, even though you are older and probably can't fuck with me anymore, Ratman, I just want to tell you that let's not meet again.